Hello, everyone. Welcome to Proficy 2026, our annual leadership strategy and product launch webinar series. My name is Alexis Murphy, and I'll be your host today. On today's webinar, we'll discuss how the ability to handle changes without disruption is essential for manufacturing companies worldwide. We'll show you how Proficy Scheduler empowers your operators with better production planning. We'll showcase its latest features and provide an exclusive look at the features and enhancements coming later in 2026. Before we get into the fun stuff, I want to be sure to mention that today's event may include forward-looking statements. The information presented is intended to be an outline of general product direction, and it should not be relied on in making a purchasing decision. Now for some housekeeping. You should all see an interface with some buttons at the bottom of your screen. They look like the ones on the right side of the slide here. Please send any questions you have through the orange chat bubble button. Through the purple envelope button, you can contact our team. The blue paperclip button is our most important. It's where you'll find relevant content and resources related to today's webinar. Through that orange person icon, you can connect with today's host, Jens. He's the product manager for Proficy Scheduler. If you need technical assistance, please reach out through that orange question mark button, though most of your issues can be resolved just by refreshing your browser. And then lastly, please share your feedback with us through that pink checklist button. It's where you can send us your latest challenges and initiatives, and it's really how we build our products collaboratively with your insight. With that, I'll give a quick introduction of today's speaker, Jens. He is one of the founders of the Rawbeck scheduling product, which is now Proficy Scheduler. He has been working with development and delivery of scheduling solutions for over 25 years. He's the current product manager for Proficy Scheduler, and he works out of the GE Vernova office in Denmark. With that, I'll kick it over to you, Jens, to take us through today's presentation.
Thanks a lot, Alexis, and I'm really happy to share with you here some of the new stuff in Scheduler 8.0, the version we have just released, and then later also a little bit about what's coming. But first, if anyone are new to Scheduler, let me just introduce it briefly in a few slides here, and to say, okay, just to position it and why we do scheduling. You know, some of the trends that we are seeing today is listed here, and I won't go through them all, but competition is strong. There's a lot of supply chain noise, a lot of stuff happening, and the most efficient will win. And also what we are seeing is that manufacturing industry is onshoring. We are seeing a lot of automation capabilities that really require some great planning, flexible planning to make the best of those automation investments. Planning is getting more complex and time consuming. Maybe also sustainability is an issue where better scheduling can help to produce more efficiently and better reach sustainability goals. And also, I think we are seeing tenure is going down for good planners. So it's not uncommon that you know you don't have any more guys staying doing scheduling for 15 years. So it's more common that it's 2 or 3 years, and it means that you don't have all the tribal knowledge may not be there, and a system for scheduling is you know needed. And all of this put together and to be you know provoke a little bit, then I could say that you know for many leading companies, mediocre scheduling in Excel and ERP just doesn't cut it anymore, and that's really why we have a product, Proficy Scheduler, for doing better scheduling. And also what we have experienced is that a lot of companies have underinvested in scheduling tools, but here Proficy Scheduler can really help. So it's not time consuming to create quality schedules. It's more easy to visualize all the different constraints that may exist when you do detailed scheduling to make sure that you produce a good quality schedule. And it's also a great tool to communicate a schedule to a lot of different stakeholders in the company. And again, it's a system, so losing a planner is less of a risk if you have a good system. So really, with scheduling, you can synchronize manufacturing activities and improve productivity and reduce capital binding. You can produce capacity balance schedules. So it's not good to have a lot of stuff next week, but almost nothing the week after. So if you can balance out that capacity, it's cheaper to produce. And then finally, as also what I will talk later is that we can provide a SaaS hosted solution. It may, with a tool like this, you can onboard quickly and get return on investment quickly also. And to again say scheduling in a system context, what does it look like and what does Scheduler do? And let me just go through this really briefly here. So I think very often you'll see you have an ERP system. You have customers. In this case, it's a worried customer coming in, putting in a sales order, and wants to know when can I get my products for the sales order that I'm placing. Then what will happen is that in ERP with detailed scheduling, Proficy Scheduler here, you send the work orders created, the bill of material, and the opening stock. You send that to the scheduling tool. Here, you can really fine detailed schedule the order, taking materials into constraint, making materials into consideration, making sure that you have capacity, you have the materials, and once you have scheduled the order, you are able to answer two questions: the when, so that's the operation dates. So when will we be producing the different operations of the order, and how will we do it? So what machines or people will produce it? And this we can feed back to the ERP. The ERP can now produce a confirmed delivery date to the customer. And then for a bit of time, the customer is out of the picture. And using ERP and some precise dates from scheduler, you can go and procure materials really in a good right when you need it, and not too early and not too late. Then when you're ready to produce, you will send job lists either from ERP, maybe it could be from scheduler directly. You will send it to the shop floor. Could be an MES system, it could be an operator system inside scheduler. And then I think as you produce, you will have this closed loop to scheduler, where you feedback the status of operations that you are starting up in MES or in the operations, and you will eventually have the final completion of those steps. And this closed loop schedule with the detailed scheduling system is important, because it means you can constantly reschedule as variances will occur, and you can seize opportunities that comes from this closed loop scheduling. And then eventually you hopefully deliver on time, and you have a happy customer. And what we experienced is that if you don't have detailed scheduling as a system, then let's say it's an Excel system rather than Proficy Scheduler, then very often with the red lines here will show, it's difficult to provide the exact when and how to the ERP system. So typically you do unlimited scheduling rather than limited finite capacity scheduling. It's difficult to procure materials because the unlimited scheduling doesn't produce very exact dates. So maybe you procure materials too often, and you have too much inventory on stock, and you bind your cash in the inventory. You don't have the closed loop scheduling. So it's difficult to grasp what's going on, what started, what didn't start. And finally, very often it will actually impact your delivery time, how good you are at delivering on time. But that was a little bit about, okay, what is scheduling and why do it, and also something about what it is that Proficy Scheduler does. So with that, let me take you through some of the new stuff that we have added in the Proficy Scheduler version 8.0. We've spent, just to give you a perspective on what are the investments that we have done in general on the 8.0 version. We have done a lot of work on containerization and SaaS. So it's a way to efficiently make sure that we can host scheduler in a cloud environment. So it's a lot of technical stuff. Then we have modernized the web technology, and it's an ongoing thing, but we really do a lot of work on the web planner and web client in Scheduler to make sure that it works from any place. We can quickly onboard customers, and on this new interface is also, in our experience, more preferred by younger generations compared to a desktop client. And then we've worked, and I'll come back to that, but to make it more user-friendly to import master data and transactional data. We have added stuff around runtime languages, so now you can have a scheduler in many different languages, graphical editing of constraints, and the way you can configure the client for your own personal needs. There's also some areas where we really put in a lot of efforts. And the current version is called 8.0. It is released Q4, sorry. It says 2026, but it should have been 2025, last December. And then the previous version ahead of that was version 7.6. Again, the year is wrong here. Sorry about that, but it was in 2025 Q1. And I will talk a lot about 8.0 here on the next slides, exactly what we have been doing. Then one of the things that I mentioned is that we want to make scheduler really SaaS or cloud enabled. So, and this actually also helps customers that use the on-prem version. But one of the things that we've done is that we have moved a lot of the configurations that previously were stored in files. We moved it to the server, the scheduler server, and it can now be stored in the database. So it means that it's now more easy to, and we've made sure that it's easy to migrate those old file-based configurations to the server. But now having them on the server, it's more easy to edit the configurations and send them out to all connected clients. It was more difficult before because you had to ask people to restart manually. And we've also make sure that the configurations can be different for different roles. So planners can have one configuration, viewers another one, and so forth. So that is one major thing that is new for the 8.0 version. Also related to that, you can create scripts for further customizations, and also those scripts can now be placed on the server. So again, you can live edit those scripts, and they will immediately be applied to the running system. And there are different ways that you can execute those scripts. I won't go into those details right now. So again, getting away from that file-based configurations is important for us. And it all means that in order then for a desktop client to support loading those new central configurations, we've added a new launcher. So earlier we have Robic Scheduler Exe, but now we have a new one called Scheduler Planner Exe. We still have the old. So if you have an on-prem scheduler system, you can keep doing what you're doing today. No changes there. But if you use the new exe files for launching the desktop planner, the first thing you will see is this Proficy Scheduler launcher screen. And here you can set up connections to different scheduler servers. So very often you will maybe have a production environment and maybe a QA or a dev environment. And here you actually connect upfront to the server. And it means that once you click the launch button here, you actually start the connection. But now we know what server you are connecting to. We know what role, are you a planner or a viewer, and we can load the right configuration from the server. So it's a small change to how you launch, but yeah, I can only stress that this is an option. You don't have to use this new launcher. You can continue with the old way of doing it, where it's configured in the file what server you connect to. One change if you use this launcher is that you don't have the option to load a plan from a file anymore. You still can do that if you launch locally, use this button right here, but still you can so you don't have you can log out and you can do scenario planning in a sandbox, but you can't load the plan, but you can restart and it will take you back to the launcher and you can restart again. And then maybe also from a technical perspective, we have added what is called token-based API keys. So it's a way to securely connect to the scheduler server and pull out data or write data to the server. But it's this token-based is just the way to do it when you have cloud environments. It's more secure. And this takes me really to this point here that with all those new changes, we are now able to provide a Proficy Scheduler as a SaaS hosted solution. So a scheduler solution that lives in the cloud and it's hosted by our Smart Factory Cloud MEST. The client for this will be the web planner, and you can go to this portal and you can connect to the site or the factory that you're allowed to connect to. So really a great new way, and it's possible if you have currently an on-prem scheduler. There are tools built in for migrating from an on-prem version to the SaaS version, and we call it Proficy Scheduler Ultimate when it's the SaaS version. So if that is of interest, I think really contact our sales team and learn a lot more. And we will have, I'm sure later, we will have a separate call or webinars on the SaaS hosted solution. Then if continuing now, what else have we done in the 8.0 version? We have added additional language support for Web Planner. Previously, it was supported only in English, but now you can click this menu up here on the right, and you will have this language option here that you can push, and you will see a list of supported languages. All the big languages and some smaller ones are supported. Spanish, French, Italian, so forth. So really a lot of big languages and small languages. And when you select, if I select a language here in the web planner, that same language will be used across all the different web clients of Scheduler. So also in Operator, when I log in, I will now have that runtime language. And I think the runtime language selected is a personal for you only. So it's not something that you can have many different users, and each of them can have their own runtime language. Yeah. So no more language barriers. And just A small note here is that it is, machine translated. Until we really get through some heavy usage of each of the different languages, you may run into some funny translations, but let us know and then we can improve together. Also for Web Planner, we have added this option to edit the route in this graphical constraint editor, similar to desktop. So if you're looking at in this case, it's the master routes, and here I've selected the master route. There's now this constraint editor option, and it will open up this graphical editor where you can, first of all, graphically get an overview of what does your route look like. Is it, one to many, many to one? But you can also add additional constraints. You can select a constraint line and you can delete it. You can select a constraint line and you can set all these different details, the source anchors, the source overlap, the destination anchor, destination overlap. So all these detailed, also stuff like hard link, synchronized resource. So I think that was a great thing to add to Web Planner. It's been in great demand that we can now set all the details on the constraints here. Also, in Web Planner, we've been working on the ability to import data from CSV files. So we have added this in the hamburger menu on the top left. You can click Importer, and initially, you will get into a screen where you can select already created import configurations, and those import configurations you can graphically edit and create. So this is an example of where I'm importing production order fields. You can see here order fields on the right, and I can click the gear icon here and I can select what destination fields inside scheduler do I want to import to. So right here is ID, description, status, and then on my list I have my CSV columns 1, 2, 3, and I can name them if I like, and I can map them graphically. And there are also in this virtual column here, I can add additional processing rules like mapping from one thing on the source side to another value on the destination. So really here you can configure right in Web Planner how you want to import data. And then this is what it looks like then when you start to import. So in the first step, you will select a pre-made configuration. So maybe I want to import order headers with an altered route field. You get a small overview of what source input you get. You can click next, and then you will get to a data section where you upload the file to import the CSV file. So really, we've tried to make this as a guided wizard to make sure that nothing goes wrong and you really get some messed up data into the system. So these are the first two steps. If I continue here, these are the step 3. You do a validation. You can see, okay, what orders will be updated, what orders are new. So it will actually go in and check, okay, and also if there are any syntax errors in the input, you will be notified and you can change it or you can go back and fix it. And then finally, when you click the import button here, it will do the actual import, and in the end, you'll get a report of what went well, what didn't go well, and so forth. So again, safe user configured import, I think has been a great addition in the 8.0 version of Web Planner. And you can import both orders, but also master materials master data like master materials, master resources, equipment. So a lot of master data can be imported as well. Then continuing on here, operator enhancements. So the operator module in Scheduler is a module for, you can show, as you can see here, you can show the equipment and what operations are planned from, in this case, from yesterday to tomorrow, and the operator can click on an operation and say, okay, I want to check in, and you can start record, how much time was spent and how far are we on the job in terms of quantity. So one new addition here is that we have added this I or info column that an operator can click, and here it will open up a panel that is fully customizable by you as a customer. You can click the gear icon and you can remove information you don't want the operators to see. But here there's a new route option which wasn't there in the previous version. So and it's great for cases where an operator needs to see the context, so needs to know what's ahead of the operation that I'm working on and what's after. So what's happening downstream, because then you can better coordinate with other operators. Then there are some performance improvements, getting faster to work with. Some details about, are there, when I check in on a job, you can get warnings if another person has already, or another employee has already checked in. And you can also be asked, hey, do I want to check that guy out? So you can report actual consumption on the BOM lines. You can see that we have this material tab here. And then some details about job types. So we have a job type called non-production, where you can't report progress, progress in quantities, but you can still you can see the job, so you know what to do, and you can check in, and it will just start, and that's it. So you can basically record start and end of an operation, but not how far you are. So again, to make it usable really for in other situations and for other operator job types. Sub operations. So if you have sub operations previously, you couldn't check in on that, but that is now supported also. So I think we have received operators, a young product. It's been out there for a couple of years, but we received a lot of great feedback from our users and customers. So it really enabled us to further, improve on the ease of use of the operator. So great feedback, and keep that coming. That's great. There's a small change, or maybe, but I think it's worth mentioning. It's related to sequence dependent setup and the changeover time you have in that way. So it's just based on feedback we received. Before, if you had an operation 1, you had an operation 2 following, and you have added a changeover time. What could happen is that, this is the setup time added because of a changeover. What could happen earlier is that when operation 2 was actually started in production, maybe it was started 5 minutes ahead of scheduled time, and it would look like this, and suddenly we would remove the changeover time, because now this operation didn't see operation 1 as the previous operation anymore. And it wasn't really a good way to do it. So we changed this. So if this happens, we will actually still consider operation 1 as the previous operation, and we will keep the changeover time added. So I think it's worth mentioning, because you may experience some small differences on how changeover time is calculated, but we believe that this is really what it should have been from the beginning. Another thing for Web Planner added is a better copy paste from, if you have a table inside Web Planner. In this case, it's master materials. There are now a copy button, and you can, in this case, I've searched out on something on the material name spur, and then you can click copy, and all those 4 rows will be copied into Excel, and you can continue. You can work with that in Excel. Also, down here with the material transactions, you can select individual transactions, and you will see here what will be copied. So again, just to make it make Web Planner, Web Viewer work in a lot of more context than previously. Also, a thing added to Web Planner is this. We've had all these forward from now, forward from material date, forward from date, backward from delivery date. That's been there from the beginning, but now I think we were missing one scheduling option, backward from a specified date. So earlier you could only do it backward from the delivery date, but now you can add this. You can use the backward from date, and you'll be asked for a certain date. So you can simulate, and it doesn't just have to be just in time towards the delivery date anymore. So again, I think it's closing some gaps that we had with the desktop planner. And also a new thing in Web Planner, we have on this navigation bar where you can move forth and back in time, where you already had the zoom buttons. We've now added this options of selecting a predefined view horizon. So 24 hours, 5 days, 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, 4 months. And again, it's because users did experience that it was difficult to get to a fixed number of days. If that, if by just zooming in and out, it could take a bit of fiddling to get it. So we added this for convenience, and it's also great in a training situation where you have to tell people to do the same thing. Fast and easy to always now return to a known view. Snap settings has been added to Web Planner. So this ability to, when you move an operation manually in the Gantt chart, that it snaps either the start time or the end time to, and again here you can select, maybe it should always snap to 7 o'clock in the morning, or maybe you want to snap to every closest 30 minutes, so whole hour, half an hour. And it's something that you enable on the gear icon up here, and then you can go to snap settings and find these settings here. And before going to what's to come, I think just a reminder, if I just switch to Scheduler Web Planner, I think I haven't mentioned really everything new in 8.0 right here, but I think you will, if you haven't been in Web Planner for a while, do it, because I think also what we have worked with is how do we paint setup time and switch over time. There's been some different ways to do it. This is one of them. I think for Web Planner, it's really nice to work with. You have stuff like easily, adjust an operation to previous and following operation. There are stuff like I can select a bunch of operations and say, okay, left adjust everything, and it will, move everything. So a lot of good stuff that is really easy to use compared to the desktop, and also stuff like make places now inside the tool. So you can, if I want to produce this ahead of everything else, I can place it there, and I can run make place, and it will shift everything to the right. That is, it's lying on top of. Also stuff like if I want to close the shift calendar across a lot of different equipments, I can select it, in the Gantt chart, I just select that I want to close, and then I could say, okay, close the calendar. So again, a lot easier than really doing this in desktop. So I think it's not only talking about the gaps that, all the features missing in Web Planner anymore. I think there's just some stuff that is a lot easier to do now in Web Planner than in desktop. So because we are constantly trying to as we add new features to make them easier to use and more user-friendly. Also, material graphs is here now. If you select something, you can see, okay, what's the material situation for the stuff I selected. You'll find, everything in here really and easy to use. But let me go back to this slideshow here. So, what's to come? First of all, the guiding principles that our developers are really having the back of their head is that first of all, we want to always provide a world-class detailed scheduler, the best of them all really, and we want to avoid diverging into areas where other products might have a fit. So, as an example, forecasting and rough cut capacity planning, we rather work with somebody else if a customer needs that feature. We will keep on working on having the client on web technology, because it's just the future and it's easy and secure access from everywhere. We will continue working on improving how we can bring scheduler to you as a SaaS hosted solution. That's very important for us. We will try to always automate and optimize for everyday scheduling tasks. So really help our customers out there to make stuff faster and more and quickly. And then we will be using AI to really allow customers to take advantage of their own data and to make it more efficient to schedule. So that's one of the big new areas that we will start to look into. Then world-class interfacing to ERP and MES is something that also is at the top of our roadmap constantly. And we will also be working a lot with improve integration to other Proficy portfolio products like planned applications, Ops Hub, and where it makes sense. And basically also anything that can make sure that customers get a fast and pleasant onboarding experience, and support works really well is also an area where we really want to constantly be working on. Having said that, so version 8.0 is out now. For the 2026 version, we will be working a lot to close additional parity gaps that we have with the desktop client. So in Web Planner, and its reporting features is one of the areas that we're working on, and manpower graphs, but also a lot more really is going on there with the web client. As I said, integration to Proficy planned applications is and also Proficy Data Hub is on the horizon here for 2026. Operations Hub, the product within the Proficy portfolio for where you can show, you can build your own dashboards really of bringing different systems together into a uniform view. And then AI, machine learning, is an area where we also start to investigate and hope to provide features. And then if we look a little bit further out, I think we are looking into some advanced Proficy suite integration. Can we start to share master data? So if you create a piece of equipment in MES, we might as well reuse that piece of equipment. Scenario planning in Web Planner. So and ability to create a scenario one, try some different scheduling strategies, see some KPI summaries for that scenario, and then do the same for scenario B, and then eventually continue with the best of them. And then AI, I think if we can get AI into the scheduling, and it's typically, as I see it, where human reasoning is needed, maybe we can leverage some AI decision making. So that's also for the coming versions. Key takeaways of today's presentation, in my point of view, is really that we have a SaaS hosted scheduler. It's ready. it's running. You can run on this right now. So if that is of interest, because it can reduce the internal IT hosting burden of having scheduler on-prem, and you will always have a system that is updated and with the latest security patches, with the latest features. So maybe consider, if you are on-prem, if that is worth considering. Really take advantage of Web Planner and Web Viewer. I estimate that the parity gaps with the desktop version, I think we 90% is close really, and it's the most relevant ones that we have created. So I think you will, if you haven't used it, really try it out, and I think you will be surprised how well it works. And it's part of the package. So if you have subscription, which I think a lot of you have, then it's part of the package. You can use it also for on-prem deployments. So it's not anything only for SaaS. It's also for on-prem. And as I think I tried to show you, there are some stuff that is actually easy and faster to do in Web Planner. Take advantage of the operator module. It's part of the package, again, for all subscription-based customers. If you're not on subscription, consider maybe to switch to subscription and get all these nice new features. And also maybe if you have the older legacy shop floor system, consider replacing shop floor with operator, because that's where we do really all the new stuff, and it has a lot of new capabilities. And if you are in a SaaS environment, the old shop floor, really we don't recommend that for SaaS. Use operator; it's more secure. And then, as I showed in the beginning, this server-based configuration where you get rid of all the file-based configuration, do consider that even for on-prem customers, because it makes it easier to maintain, and you don't need access to the actual server to make configurations. It's all there right on the server. But I hope you could use some of the information here from my presentation. So thanks a lot.